The age of a player is a very crucial factor in football. For the average football fan, age is just a number. But understanding how age works in football is very crucial for the football player, for the licensed agent, for the club owner or club administrator. It's also important for the prospective club owner and also for the parents of the players. Because the procedure that applies to the international transfer or first registration of a player who is 9 years old is entirely different from the procedure that applies to the international transfer or first registration of a player who's 10 years. And you're wondering, why do I need to transfer or register a player who's 9 years or 10 years? There are times when parents are migrating to a new country for reasons other than football. They're going there for studies or they're going there to work. And they have a child who has been playing football in his home country or who wants to play football for the first time in his new country. These rules are the same, but the procedure is different. And there are parents who are involved, who want to be involved in their children's career. You need to understand how these things work. A club that participates in the training and development of a player when the player is 15 or in the year of the player's 15th birthday receives far less regulatory compensation than a club that trains that same player in the following year. Now, you set up a football club, you need to understand how the age rule works and how this rule can affect your potential earnings as a club. You need to understand that a player's training commences in the beginning of the calendar year of his 12th birthday and ends at the end of the calendar year of his 23rd birthday for solidarity contribution purposes. Which means if you sign a player or if you train a player within this period, you'll be eligible to receive solidarity contribution from the player's training and development in the future when the player is transferred for a transfer fee. But when you sign or register a player after this period, when you sign a player who's 24, or if you have the habit of registering players who are older than 23, you might find that you will always have the obligation to pay solidarity contribution, but you will never be entitled to receive solidarity contribution from any club. That means you will only be eligible to receive contractual compensation, contractual return on investment. You will never receive any regulatory return on investment. You also need to understand how the age rule works for training competition purposes. When you train a player at any point from the year the player clocked 12 up until the end of the year of the player's 21st birthday, you will have the right, or you may have the right to receive training compensation. But you also may have the obligation to pay training compensation to his previous club, depending on the circumstances. You also need to understand that 22, the year the player clocks 22 and the year he clocks 23, are some sort of years in football. Because you do not have the right to receive training compensation when you train a player during these years, but you may have the obligation to pay training compensation to his previous clubs. Now, when you sign a player who's 24, you do not have the right to receive training compensation and you do not have the obligation to pay any club training compensation. Now, understanding how the age rule works in football will help you structure your club. It will help you structure your signings. It will help you manage your expectations. It will help you understand what you should expect from a particular signing and what you should not expect from a particular signing. It will help you decide on whom to sign for certain reasons and whom not to sign. It will help you understand whether you should expect regulatory return on investment from your pool of players, or whether you should only expect contractual return on investment. It will help you understand how to run your club as a football agent. Understanding how the age rule works will help you determine your market offerings. You have a 24-year-old player under your agency. He's still playing football at a very, very low level, at an amateur level, at a grassroots level. For some clubs, this player's training period has ended. They understand that his training period has ended. But for them to get him to the level where they want him to be, they have to invest a lot in his training and development. But because his training period has ended under the regulations, they will not recoup any regulatory return on investment from that training. So they may pass on the opportunity to sign him, not because he's not talented, but because of these regulatory issues. That's not to say that clubs will never sign an amateur player who's 24-year-old. They might. There are clubs that will do that. But there are clubs that would never do that. As a football player, you must understand how the age rule works in football. You must understand it. Not every player is a Jude Bellingham, or a Kylian Mbappe, or a Vinicius Jr. Players whose giftedness and talent made them rise above regulatory restrictions. Nobody is going to say, I'm going to pass on the opportunity to sign Vinicius Jr. because of the obligation to pay training compensation. No. Not every player is at that level. And you might never get to that level. That's the sad reality, but it's not a bad thing. But you must understand how this rule works. You are 19 years old. They are sending you out on loan to different clubs. You must understand that if the loanee club, the club where you're proceeding to on loan, is responsible for the payment of your salaries during those loan period or during your loan period, they will be eligible to receive training compensation. You must be careful so you do not make moves that could scuttle your future transfer moves. You also need to understand how this rule could help you when determining your contract length or the length of your contract. It's the beginning of the year of your 20th birthday. A club has offered you a 4-year contract that will expire at the end of the year of your 23rd birthday. That's an ideal situation because your contractual freedom will coincide with your regulatory freedom, which means you will become free contractually at the same time when you become free under the regulations. Sometimes it's also ideal for your regulatory freedom to precede your contractual freedom, so that when you become free under the contract, you are free and attractive, not that you become free and unattractive. You must understand how the age rule works in football, because I believe age is the most ubiquitous factor in football.